So today we are going to start the second day of the short course. Last day we stopped over here with some example of the learning task, and we have seen how the actual data set look like in a machine learning application, having some lot of features and a class level in case of classification task, and in case of regression, instead of class level there are some continuous values. And in the visualization of the feature space, we have seen that it looks something like some points, and to understand what is the class or of a particular unknown point, we need to, construct a clear boundary that can differentiate between two different type of points, two different set of points, and this particular boundary is some function. So ultimately, through the machine learning, our goal is to generate this function, or you can say to realize this function, so that we can use this function to predict what is the class level for some unknown points, or maybe what is the corresponding output value of some continuous set of features. Anyway, so let's start the class for today. So we will start with uh, a basic process of supervised learning, that also we have seen in last day, that supervised learning one actually having two different set of process. First we have to train a model, and if the model works perfectly, then we test it with some unknown data. Now this training and testing data are of the similar type of structure. The only difference is that in case of test data, we don't we don't change the function parameters with respect to the error that we get. So this the learning algorithm shown over here is actually some program that uses the training data, each and every pattern of the training data, and also obviously the features of the pattern, and then somehow it actually creates a model. Now what the model is, what does the model mean? You can consider this model is nothing but something like something like a function. So this model is the function. Okay. So as soon as this function is created, then we can use this function for some test data, and then we can calculate the accuracy. That means how much data that is correctly classified, or how much data that is correctly computed as an output. So this particular diagram may be explained in more detail, that we have some data set over here, a data set over here for training. Sorry, just a minute. So just a minute. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so this is much better. So you see, this input data is actually nothing but This input data is nothing but the training data set which contain lot of patterns with some features. So first thing is that you have to extract the features. This feature vector that we have already discussed in the previous class is actually input to the algorithm and corresponding level of the data. This level may be, real valued real valued point, or maybe some discrete class level, depends on whether it is a classification task or a regression task. And this machine learning algorithm creates this machine learning classifier model which actually takes the other inputs and predict this class level. So our actual goal of the machine learning is to predict something. For example, if we want to, we may try to predict that what will be the weather on the same day in the next year, right? So this is very clear that we cannot see the future. So as a human being, it is not possible to us to predict the future, but a machine can do it if we can train the machine with some the statistical behavior of the problem. So actually what we are doing, we are actually teaching the machine the statistical behavior of all the data set, so that it can understand the mapping between the inputs and output. That's all. So and you see, at the time of learning, it's very important, there is a very important assumption we have, that distribution of training example is identical to the distribution of test sample. What does it mean? It means that suppose if we have a situation something like this, let's take a suppose, let's try to explain with respect to a graph. So already we have seen that if we have two features, x1 and x2, and we have seen that the training patterns or test patterns, whatever you can say, are basically some points in the space. So something like this, right? So suppose we have lot of points here, okay, and so these are of one class, and consider another situation like say there are some other classes, okay, and many other points are there for the classes. So you see when so these are the example points that we have, okay, the example points that we have, and suppose the for testing data we have considered the points presented somewhere here, okay, suppose. So naturally we can see that to distinguish this data with this data, I mean uh, some straight line will be there, obviously. I mean maybe we have a situation like it will draw a straight line something like this, okay. So I'm sorry, this is not a straight line, I mean some function something like this. Now this function may not be true if the training is not perfect, and second point is that the distribution of this input training pattern may be in one side, where the distribution of the other training patterns may be somewhere other side. So what will happen, there will be a chance to misclassify this set of data as a training example. I mean in a real life situation I can say that I am teaching, say, from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So you have already learned that 5 chapters, but I have asked you from chapter 6 or 7. Naturally, chapter 6 and 7 is first of all unseen, not only unseen, but also you can say the data points with respect to the feature space are entirely different from the data points, the behavior of the data points presented in considered in chapter 1 to 5. So this is what actually statistically we say the distribution. So if the distribution is totally different, then it will be very hard for any machine learning algorithm to work correctly. But generally it is not exactly same in case of test or trained data. It is not possible. So it's some part it's validated maybe to some certain degree, but that is under a tolerance value. If the threshold increases, then it will be difficult to find a correct classifying classifier. So when we are evaluating the methods, naturally we have to calculate the errors that we are getting for in the outputs. So here I have listed 3 different type of error. The first one is absolute error. Absolute error actually find the error between the output and the predicted output and the actual output. It sum all the predicted and actual output and it divide by n. And since it is absolute, it is given that it is absolute. That's why we have a mod value between y and y hat. So y hat represents the predicted output and y actually represents the actual output. Okay, just a minute. Okay, and next one is the sum squared error. Sum squared error, from the name I think you can understand that we have some square of the errors, y square. The reason is that maybe the error can be negative. For example, for the first case, maybe the actual is 0.5 and you have got 0.7, and in the second case maybe the actual is 0.6 and you have got say 0.4. So if you do a difference, it is minus 0.2, and if you do the difference over here, it is 0.2. So naturally, if you add them, ultimately you will get 0 as error, but it is not 0 error, right? That's why what we do, what is the best way? That do one thing, just do the square. So if you do the square, then obviously what will be the whatever the sign before this error value is, it will become positive, and so we can find out some actual error that we can have. Now other than the sum square error, we have some other square error also. For example, mean square error, and also root mean square error. So mean square error actually say it's something like 1 by n y minus y hat square. So this is nothing but this, where n is the number of samples, total number of cases what you are actually testing. So this is actually do nothing, just it divide all the error by n. That's why it become mean square error, and also it is said MAC, this is MAC, it is RMAC, and it is called SAC. Okay, so generally nobody will tell you a sum square error, it will say you SAC, MAC or RMAC, and you can understand that. And root mean square error is nothing but it takes a root over of all this. So that ultimately, I mean, I'm just finding x, I'm finding x as an error. Whatever the sign, I'm doing x square. So sign has vanished, and then I'm getting root. So that means basically, ultimately, I will get the sign will get vanished. That is the point. Now, just a minute. Oh, by the way, one more thing is left, that is this function. That is delta function. Just a minute. Okay. One more error measure is left, that is number of misclassification. You see, this delta function, in case of in case of classification task, we use this particular function. Now, what this delta function is? The delta function says that del of fx is the input of the, I mean, if we have the model, this is the model, then x is the input and y is the output. Okay, so this y we have represented, we can also represent as fx, because we are considering this is our f, right? So now in some situation maybe this fx and actual y is same, and in some cases this fx and actual y is different, right? So del of fx and y will be equal to 1 if fx equal to y and equal to 0 otherwise, something like this. So this is the definition of this del fx function, delta function. So that means for all the different patterns, we can find out the number of one that we can have, and that I can divide by the total number of patterns. For example, suppose I have 100 samples. Among 100 samples, I found that this fx equal to y is true for 70 cases. So 70 will be divided by 100, 0.7. That means if you just multiply it, I mean either you can say that the accuracy is 0.7, or you can say it is 70%, something like that. So in this way we can find the errors. And you see, this is actually what I have written over here again, that is accuracy is number of correct classification by the total number of test cases. And not only this accuracy is important, there are many things that is many other points are present. For example, robustness is also needed so that it can handle noisy and missing values. What does noisy and missing value means? For example, if you work with an image does not mean, image may contain lot of images, lot of noises. Lot of noises may not be visible through our eye, but maybe it harms the learning of a machine learning algorithm that can predict something from the image. Or for example, maybe suppose there is an image, and from the image you have to understand what type of face it is. I mean, it is a smiling face or sad face or something like that. So the face will be the input to the model, and the model will learn from the image type somehow, and then it will basically predict what type of face is. Now in that case, if the data is noisy, definitely your learning will not be good. So that means somehow we have to make the model robust so that we can handle this type of noisy data. And missing values means there is a very practical example of this missing value that is present in what we call electronic health record. Sorry. What is electronic health record? Or you can also say EHR. Okay. So what is electronic health record? Actually, in real life, when we when we go hospital because of some disease or some reason, this electronic health record is a long database containing all your information from your date of birth till the end of the end of your life. Okay, so this electronic health record contain all the different times time points where you have visited in the hospital, you have taken some medicine, you had some disease, or you were treated with some medicine, and all these things. Now generally these electronic health records contain lot of missing values, in the sense that maybe within some specific amount of specific span of time the data is not available for your, in your case. So in that case, the features that represents the cases for in that at that span of time for other cases, the features will be basically null. So the value is missing. That means, for example, within 5 to 10 years, what type of medicine you have consumed is not present, may not be present in that health record. So this EHR is a very recent issue. Actually, this EHR is maintained with maintained in all over the country for each and every citizens for a lot of research purpose, so that we can handle a lot of calamities before it happened, and many other things are there also. So I'm not going in detail of electronic health record for today. Now another important thing is that compactness of the model. Compactness of the model means that what is the size of the total model with respect to the number of free parameter. What is number of free parameter? Number of free parameter means ultimately one thing is clear, that we are going to create a function. We are going to create a function which depends on some x's, and x is nothing but something like x1, x2, xn as a vector, where x is a pattern and x1, x2, a vector, basically a feature vector which contain x1 to xn. That means, and obviously we have some y. So y is related with some, say, f of x1, x2, x3 till xn. And how? That means there is some mathematical formulation, maybe I don't know exactly the mathematical formulation what will be, but assume that we have obviously some mathematical formulation that ultimately represents that particular straight line, or maybe the curve or anything. So if we consider that, that means the equation can be something like k1 x1 plus k2 x2 square by k3 x4 plus k4 root over x5, something like this, right? Now question is that what is this k? These k are free parameters. These k, all these k1, k2, k3, k4, these are what we call free parameters. Free parameter in the sense, if we consider the 2D space, assume that we have some points here, another points here, so that ultimately you have to design a curve something like this. I mean, ultimately you have to get the function like this. Suppose this particular equation represents this function. So for this function, I need lot of different k's. This k represent whether how much, I mean how much above this x-axis is, where the y-axis will be there, I mean with respect to y-axis where the points will be there. So these depends on this different value of k, this curve can become this one or can become this one. So whether this curve will be this one or maybe this one, it will depend upon this k, right? So that means ultimately we are learning, every time we are saying we are learning, actually what we are doing, we are tuning these free parameters such that we can find this optimal curve that can correctly classify or correctly distinguish between two set of points with 100% accuracy. Okay, so I mean we will see in more detail how we are tuning these parameters k1, k2 till kn, which are associated with these different features of a pattern. There, I mean, I hope you will understand more. In more, it will be much more interesting to see that actually what is happening in case of learning. And another important thing is that overfitting. During learning, we have in some there is a situation that the sum square error or maybe the mean square error for the training data set is decreased, but it is not decreased in case of test data set. So this is happened because of some overfitting. For example, let's take a situation. Uh, let's draw a situation. So suppose we have a graph over here, okay, and there is some points. Okay, so from this particular set of points, if we want to draw a straight line, that can if we want to draw a line that can basically have the as a whole the mean square error or the sum square error will decrease. So you will say that okay, the line will be something like in this particular part, something like this, or maybe uh, if you can, it can be something like this one also. I mean, let me draw it again. You can say the line can be something like this is sufficient. So if the line is there, then for some unknown value, for example, obviously the x-axis, if we extend the x-axis more, for some unknown point x, we can predict what will be the point in y with respect to y-axis, right? Now, in case of overfitting, what happened? You know, it happened something like this. I mean, let me draw it. Yes, it happened. The training happened well. Actually, I should not say well, because if these points are training data set, right? So it point will basically have something like this. Something like this. So from this particular curve, if you do the sum squared error for this curve, naturally the sum squared error for this curve will be almost zero, where the sum squared error for the previous curve was not zero in case of training data set. So with respect to the sum squared error, you will say the blue curve is the green curve is better than the blue one. But you know what happened? Since the line goes for each and every point in this way, that means for some points present over here, maybe instead of, you know, instead of this point, the point will predict somewhere over here, which may not be true correctly. Correctly obtained. Uh, from because of this. From this point. So that means what happened with respect to training data, we have we have actually 100% accuracy almost, or there is no error. But with respect to test data, we will see there is a lot of errors. And now obviously there is some reason because of this. Maybe the data is noise, maybe, and another very important point is that if there is not sufficient training data. For example, I haven't you haven't got the full information of some particular subject, and we are asking someone is asking you about a lot of questions on the subject. So ultimately you are not properly learned of the subject. That's why obviously for a lot of questions that will be asked from the subject, it's not possible to answer by you. The same thing happened for this is the what actually we call overfitting. Okay. Now another thing is that you can say another example with respect to the same thing, that in your side you can say that you are given only 2 or 3 chapters of a book, and you are repeatedly learning from only those 2 chapters. So what will happen? You will be master in that 2 chapters only. If someone asks you from only those 2 chapters, you can answer anything. But if someone asks you outside the chapter which is related with the chapter, then also you will not able to answer. The reason is that since you had rigorous study on only those 2 chapters blindly, your learning was not clear to handle some other questions which may not be from the 2 chapters directly, but may be related with indirectly of the with the chapter. And now another point we have for this type of overfitting is the excessive number of training iterations. Excessive number of training iteration means a new word is came over here for you, that is epoch. So what is epoch? Epoch is something like, you can say that you have started reading a book, you have actually read all the chapters of the book, and then I told you that do one thing, you read the books again. So you have started reading the books from the chapter 1 again till end of the book. So the set of starting reading from chapter 1 to last is one epoch. In this way, in some situation, actually in case of machine learning problems, machine learning algorithms, we need multiple epochs to train a model. Multiple epochs means in one epoch we actually pass all the parameters. All the patterns. After completion of all the patterns, after feeding all the patterns in the input and getting the error, depends on the error, some parameter is tuned, everything is happening for all the patterns, and after completion of the last all the patterns, we do the same set, we repeat the same set again to the model. So this one set is called epoch. So if there is very large number of epoch, then also in some situation we can find that we have a overfitting, and you can see the graph of overfitting looks something like this. So on training, this accuracy started increasing after some point of time, but this testing is decreases. So this is what an overfitting is. Now how to overcome this overfitting? What we the solution is what we call k-fold cross validation. What is this? K-fold cross validation means it will not be just a minute. Yes, it will not be n, it will be k. Okay, so we have a data set something like this. Suppose this is the whole data set. This whole data set is divided into k stages, k disjoint sets. Say this is set number 1, set number 2, set number 3, set number k. And what happened? One of these k sets used for testing and other sets are used for the training purpose. And this actually is repeated for all different k's. That means for the first case, suppose this whole set is used for training and only this set used for testing. Fine. In the next time, this set of states, maybe this set of states will be used for training, only this one will be used for testing. Next, this one and all other sets will be used for training and this one will be used for testing. So we are circulating the set of training dataset and testing dataset among the all datasets, which is equally sized disjoint subset. And ultimately that means k number of possibilities are there. K number of sets are possible where in one side we have a lot of training testing data set, we have a train data set, and we will get the accuracy k times. Now average accuracy is considered with respect to this average of k accuracies. That's why it is given that use each subset to as a test set and combine the rest k minus 1 subset to the training set to learn a classifier. The procedure is run k times that I just told you, which gives the k accuracy. The final estimated accuracy learning is average of k accuracies. So typically what the diagram should be, maybe my diagram is not clear over here, but a clear diagram I have given over here. From this diagram I think you can understand that what the cross validation mean. Typically we consider either 5-fold cross validation or 10-fold cross validation. Now just a minute. Okay, so if the number of data is very large, then maybe we can consider some other approaches. We can by assuming that training and testing data set will have uh, similar type of distribution, we can consider some other approaches. But in case of I mean in case of if the data set is not very large, then we can apply this k-fold cross validation. That means, so that what will happen if we use k-fold cross validation, if there is a I mean if there is a difference in the distribution among training and testing data set for some set of states with respect to some another set of states, then depends on only that, we are not taking the decision. We are actually checking with respect to all different possibilities. So obviously the actual accuracy should be correctly evaluated. And other than this k-fold cross validation, we have one more thing also, that is leave one out cross validation, which is used if the dataset is too small. Then what we can do, we consider only one example as a test example and all other examples as training example, and we do it for all different possibilities. For example, if we have say 100 total number of 100 patterns including training and testing, obviously the total 100 patterns is very small. So what we can do, we can train with the first 99 patterns and test with the last pattern. Then we can train the second to last pattern, and first pattern we can use for testing, or maybe we can use the first pattern and third to last pattern for training and second pattern for testing. In this way we will get 100 different cases, and we calculate the error, and ultimately we can divide the error by those number of cases, and then we can find out what will be the accuracy. But this leave one out cross validation is very limited to use. Generally it is not used because the data set, at least in my experience, the data set is not too much small, so that we are bound to use this particular type of cross validation technique. Now one more point is there, that other than this training and testing data set, we have one more data set also that we have not discussed till yet, that is validation data set. This validation set is also like a test data set. Actually you can think in this way, that the whole if we consider this the whole data set, the whole data set is actually divided into three main parts. Okay, this is for train, this is for validate, and this is for test. So validation dataset is also type of test dataset, but the difference is that at the time of training, how much good training is happening, working, whether it is leading to some overfitting or not. To realize this, we use this validation dataset. That means that at the time of training, this whole set is used. We feed patterns with this train data set, find the accuracy, find the errors, depends on the errors, we tune the free parameters that we have already seen, and after doing with all this training data set, we check how much correctly classification is happening, or how much correctly real value we are getting with respect to this validation data set. If we, after some set of epochs, if we find that the accuracy with respect to the training data set, the validation data set is decreasing, started decreasing, we stop there, because the model, if we keep on training the model, the now model will going to be in a overfitting situation. Not only this, depends on this validation dataset output, there is some special tuning of the parameters used in the model, and obviously, we will see later that how we can use this validated data set. Okay, so now uh, you see now we can go for this classification measure, that how we can do this, how we can classify it. Obviously error is a very important thing and accuracy is an important thing, which is basically either you can say accuracy equal to 1 minus error, or error obviously equal to 1 minus accuracy. But accuracy is not suitable for some all the applications. For example, in a special situation where where the number of uh, where we are interested only for the minority classes. For example, we are suppose dealing with some network intrusion or financial fraud detection. So naturally, there is a very small amount of cases where this can happen. So if it is working for those very small cases, then it is not mean that the model is well classified, because to realize the model can classify correctly, we must have sufficient amount of examples. So if the sufficient amount of example is not there, then it will be pretty difficult to measure the classification accuracy with respect to the accuracy value only. That is why what we do, we consider some a metric. This metric This metric is called confusion metric. This metric is called, sorry, confusion matrix. Okay, where what is given? This is what we call true positive. This is what we call true negative, false positive, false negative, true negative. These are the four terms which actually make this confusion matrix. By the way, what false and true means, actually here it's given that the class of interest is commonly called positive classes and the rest are negative classes. So what is true positive means? That the number of correct classification of the positive examples. That means if we want to find whether uh, suppose there is an image of a lot of fruits, and suppose there is two classes, one is apple and another is orange. No, so if the image of orange is given to the model and it classify as orange, that means it is a correct classification, right? So true positive means the correct classification of the positive examples, correct classification of the orange. False negative means incorrect classification of the positive example. That means I am sending an image of orange, but the model is predicting it is an apple. Okay. So similar thing for false positive, that is incorrect classification of negative examples. That means since we are considering orange as positive cases, that means obviously the apple will be negative examples. That means incorrect classification of negative example means now I am sending image of apple and the model is classifying it is a orange, something like that. And similarly true negative means it is a correct classification of the negative example. That means I am sending apple and it is showing yes, it is an apple. So how much correctly the positive class is classifying or the negative class is classifying, and how much incorrectly the other class is classifying, depends on that we create this confusion matrix. Something like, depends on this. Now why this is important? Because we have two parameters, precision and recall. These two measures are very important, And these measures actually is the number of correctly classified positive examples divided by the total number of examples that are classified as positive, that are not true positive, that are classified as positive. That means there may be some examples which are actually negative but classified as positive. Those are also considered over here for precision. And the recall says the number of correctly classified positive examples divided by the total number of actual positive examples in the test data set. Okay, so I mean, in when you will write some machine learning algorithm for some purpose, this matrix has to be used to, if you want to claim that your machine learning model is working perfectly and how much perfectly it is working, to express this you have to use these measures. Okay, that's why we are discussing all these things. And I'm sorry, so there is an example over here. You see what is given? Is given that it is actual positive cases, this one, actual positive and correctly, actual positive and classified positive. That means actual positive say orange and correctly it is saying it is orange. Suppose the number of cases happened is 1. I mean, suppose there is 1100 samples total 1100 uh, fruits. Among 1100 fruits, 100 fruits are orange and 1000 fruits are apple. So now question is that I have a model, I am sending either orange or apple. When I send 100 oranges, in one cases it was correct. For 99 cases it was wrong. Wrong means actually it is saying that positive. That means actually it is saying it should be orange, but classified as negative. That means it is saying that it is apple. The model is saying it should be an apple, but I have sent an image of an orange. Similarly, actual negative means here the apple, but now actual actual negative is an apple, suppose, and using correctly positive, classified positive is 0. It means what? It means actual negative and classified positive. That means this is, I mean, through the column wise, what machine learning is saying, what the model is saying, and through row wise, what the actual it is. So this 0 means what? This 0 means the model can classify, can identify, not identify apple correctly. But only identifying the apple correctly is not our goal. Our goal is to identify the orange correctly also, which is not happening according to this example, because here number of misclassification is 99, but this is not misclassification, this is actually correct classification, because this is the second row which is representing actual negative. So misclassification are represented by this point, this circle and this circle, and correct classification represented by this square and this square. Okay, and depends on that some precision and recall will be executed. Now why precision and recall? Because ultimately again another score is coming, that is F1 score. This F1 score actually take this precision and recall as a as some parameter, and in find that it is you know it find an F1 score, and with this F1 score we can say that we can identify that how much good the model is, because we can see from this example that that F1 score is the harmonic mean of the precision and recall. The harmonic mean of two numbers tends to closer to tends to be closer to the smaller of the two. So this this is a characteristic of an harmonic mean that we know. So that's why F1 value will be large if both P and R very large. Then only F1 value will be large. In that case also, in that case I will say that no, my model is not good. Okay, and one more point is that is receive operating characteristic curve. This receive operator characteristic curve is a very important measure for claiming that your model is correct, which basically calculates between true positive rate and true negative true positive rate and false positive rate. So true positive rate means true positive by true positive plus false negative. What does false negative means? The false negative, you see, false negative mean the number is incorrectly classification of positive examples. That means example is positive, but the classification is negative. So that's why, that means true positive rate means the true positive cases by all the true positive examples that we have, because true positive already belong to true positive examples, but false negative is also belong to positive examples, right? Similarly, false positive rate is all the false positive cases by number of actual negative cases, because false positive means it is a negative example, right? This one. But what this true negative mean? True negative mean, you see, true negative mean number of correct classification of negative examples. So the example is negative. That means false positive rate means the false positive cases that I have found with the negative examples. I mean, this particular means all the positive examples and this one mean all the negative examples. And then also there is some other sensitivity, specificity, there is some other technique, and an important point is this area under curve. Now if there is two classifier means two model, and if I want to claim that model 1 is better than model 2, how you can do that? You can do it by this area under the curve. Now area under the curve is that if the area under the curve of the Ci means the classifier 1 is greater than that of Cj, then it is said that Ci is better than Cj. What is if the classifier is perfect, then AUC will be 1, and in case of worst case AUC is 0.5. So we will go, maybe in future if needed, we will go in detail about this. I'm not interested for this right now. So let's come to this main goal of of this course. So understanding supervised learning problems. Uh, we already have idea about what is supervised learning. There is some teacher who actually teaches um, that whether it is correct or wrong, and depends on that the model actually correct itself. And we also know that there is two different type of tasks in case of supervised learning. One is classification and another is regression. So what is classification? Classification is the process of finding or discovering a model or function which helps in separating the data into multiple categorical classes, that is discrete values. In classification, data is categorized under different levels according to some parameters given to input, then levels are predicted for the data. So the basic idea of classification already we know. I have repeatedly told you many times. So I don't think similar explanation is needed again. Now let's go for the actual part of classification. There are actually two different type of classifications. As one is binary classification and another is multi-class classification, where I have more than two classes. That may be three, maybe four, maybe five. So naturally, in case of classification task, the diagram that is given, I already drawn a similar type of diagram in my previous example or previous class, that there are two different points, and what we have to do, we have to create a boundary between those two different classes or three different classes. So basically, in case of binary classification, we can see that the boundary in this one is sufficient to distinguish between these 2 points. But these 2 points are actually training patterns. Ultimately, another point will come with respect to some x1 and x2. For example, somewhere over here. Whether this point is in class 1 or class 2. Suppose this will be considered class 1 and this is class 2. So naturally, since this particular point is below this particular line, we will say that no, this particular point is not on this line. We can say that yes, this particular point is under class 1. But in case of multi-class classification, I mean, it is not really possible to do it directly. How, ultimately multi-class classification means what? I mean, I need boundary for this one and this one differently. So basically what is done, this multi-class classification is considered as several steps of binary classifications. What I mean, here I have three classes, right? This is class 1, this is class 2 and this is class 3. So what we can do, initially the model actually find a line that can classify between class 1 and class 2 and class 3 only. Still the job is not completed because these two are into different classes, right? So that's why what the model will do next, what to do, just a minute. Next what to do, the model will fit a line between these two classes. So now it will become a proper classification among the three data. So this doesn't happen in one chance, in one attempt. Actually, multi-class classification means a series of binary classification. First binary, first we have segregate one class with, if I have n minus n number of classes, we first create a boundary between first class with n minus 1 classes. Then from we in this n minus 1 example, we create a boundary between second class with n minus 2 classes, then third with n minus 3, and in this way actually we create boundary between all different classes and find a lot of, find a function that can describe, that can actually define the difference, describe the difference between different points representing different classes. So let's do one thing. Okay, so the next point is that obviously how the classification works. I mean, you see, one thing is clear that at the time of classification, we basically, at the time of training data, we basically feed the data and wait for the output. Depends on the output, depends on the error that we get in the output layer. We somehow train the free parameters of the model so that we can find the correct output for the future inputs, right? So that means we have a set of observations. That is what we call training data set, which we train the model, and the model predict whether the certain point is is in some class or not. So the actual algorithm is given over here. It's not still algorithm, it's in a flowchart state. We will see in a form of algorithm in future. So what is given? We have a training data set. You can see this training data set contain lot of patterns. The feature extraction happen from the pattern and it feed in the ML model. This ML model produce some output Y, and we already have idea, since this is a supervised learning. So for each and every pattern, what should be the correct output that I have with me? So the difference, that is the error, is actually sent to this quality matrix somewhere over here, that is shown. This one, somewhere over here, I'm sorry, somewhere over here. So from this, create this Y hat, it find the difference with original Y, this difference as a quality matrix sent over here, which basically gives the input to the ML algorithm. Don't mix up between ML model and ML algorithm. ML model is what? ML model is the function you can assume as the formulation, and ML algorithm is the algorithm that changes the free parameters of that formula so that the formula can find correct Y for some X in future. That's why you see that this X sent to ML model, find this Y came here, and also this Y. This is what Y? This is the Y that I know, the level or the real value, depends on regression or classification task. Send over here. The difference, the error in form of quality matrix is sent to this ML algorithm, which basically somehow do this. How it does, we will see it. So we have these 7 cases, you see 7 points you have to remember. The first one, X, that pre-classified data informed of some n cross n matrix, that also already we have seen how the data is sorted, where n is the number of observation and m is the number of features. Then y is an n-dimensional vector corresponding to predicted classes for each of the n observations. Feature extraction, also we know that extracting valuable information from input x after using a series of transformation. Now this series of transformation you don't have any idea till now how feature is extracted. So forget about feature extraction right now. Assume that all the features that is directly present in the training data is used. Okay. And then the ML model that classifies we will train, labels is specified by the classifier. Quality metric is the error metric that we have already discussed. And it actually, that means you can assume in this way that we have a feedback path, something like you can design in this way that this is some model, this is input, produce some output y hat. We know what is actual desired is. This is the error that enters in the ML algorithm model. ML algorithm. This ML algorithm changes the free parameter. And this happens repeatedly for all the input patterns. So that means machine learning continually happen in a loop. It's for sure. So we have lot of different type of classifier present over here. Okay. So for example, linear classifier, logistic regression, tree-based classifier, decision tree classifier, support vector machine, artificial neural network, Bayesian regression. So lot of different type of classifier and regression problems are there, but we will concentrate only on this artificial neural network. Okay, we will concentrate only on this artificial neural network in future. For, I mean, we will, if time permits, then we can go for the other methods. And so we can do one thing, we can start this regression problem from the, what about regression from the next day. As soon as it completes, then we will start different type of classification and regression algorithms, and then we can start the neural networks. So we can stop over here for today. In the next day we will start from this particular slide. Thank you.